When I first saw that each stick had its own mold, I couldn't believe, I always thought it was a lathe, or, you know, I never really thought through the process of how the design was, you know, put onto the stick.
The grinding process, where the sticks are shaped by the use of these grindstones versus being turned on a lathe and cut with a knife. That was the most impressive part of the tour for me.
Other manufacturers use traditional wood turning to shape their sticks. Here at Vic Firth, our method is far superior to that.
The process where a stick is turned on a lathe and cut by a knife always struck me as being one where there was a lot of potential for tolerances getting kind of wide.
The blade's going to get more dull as it goes on, and the tolerances are going to change.
The grinding process is a much more consistent and reliable way to produce the different sticks without having to resort to the lathing against a blade.
When you're lathing a stick like that, and depending on how much it's cutting off at one given time, like, it's really dramatically affecting, like, the stress on the stick itself. So, I mean, it can break easier, it can snap easier.
You're putting less stress on the wood, and as you would, as opposed to the lathe, which makes it a way better quality product at the end of the day.
If you're not maintaining that blade the way that it needs to be maintained, from what I understand, then that starts to produce very irregular cuts and sticks as a result.
So that's the thing about the back knives, is that they have to be sharpened all the time.
The stone mold is a much more accurate way to get the exact shape of the stick without chipping off extra pieces of wood or working with a blade that's going to get dull over time and cause a lot of inconsistencies in the stick. So it seems to be the most refined way to develop a very beautiful instrument.
The plunge grinder is where the stick comes alive, you know, and gets their own identity, the first one.
The final shape of the drumstick is produced by the action of two plunge grinders. In plunge grinding, a 10-inch wide grinding wheel is form-dressed to the exact shape of the part to be produced. The dowel is located in front of the rapidly turning grinding wheel. A second regulating wheel rotates the wood and presses it into the grinding wheel, which causes the shape to be ground into the stick.
So the regulating wheel spins the stick, the stone mold spins against it, and it grinds the stick into what it is, as opposed to taking the stick and spinning it against a blade.
It is in the second grinding process where the back 10 inches, including the butt end of the stick, are formed.
The motion of the regulating wheel, and thus the diameter of the stick, is precisely controlled and measured in thousandths of an inch.
Consistency is really the most important thing when you're dealing with something like drumsticks. And, for a professional musician, I mean, consistency is the thing that separates the men from the boys, or the good players from the great players, or vice versa. And you would be hard pressed to achieve that consistency without having consistent tools.
Vic shapes the sticks for the grinding stone, and that works better than traditional lathes that could chip or cause imperfections or inaccuracies in the wood.
Minor grain variation, which would be perfectly acceptable from a quality and strength standpoint, causes the cutting knife to tear the surface of the wood, resulting in rejected product.
Traditional turning produces poor surface quality unless the grain of the wood is extremely straight. This is exceptionally true with hickory, where it's tough and durable.
So some companies have got higher moisture content because when they're using knives cutting the wood, it's easier to work with. And Vic, which is a bad thing, because when you hit a knot, big chunks of wood fly off. But Vic did it the clever way by grinding it on a stone.
I think it's the respect we show the artistry, the artist, And the attempts to improve and constantly make a musical instrument that makes him sound better musically, makes his performance easier.
So when he started making sticks, I was into trying them out, and they're just like everything else he does. They're a high quality. He has very, very high standards, and the sticks came out that way.
It's a compliment to me and the company that I have had so many great players over the years.
My whole association with Vic Firth is personal to start with, because I was a student of his when I was, I guess I'd consider, a teenager. When he started to make rock and roll sticks, you know, he actually hand-delivered them to me. I played in Portland, Maine with John Mellencamp in 1981 or 82, and he hand-delivered them.